It beats you up a little bit, and I didn't want that to be my ending in the game that I love so much. And Mike and being around the guys got me that love back, and I was content in walking away. And then they hired Mike McCarthy, and I was like, okay, maybe we need a full circle here.
Yeah.
Me and Mike need a full circle here.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Yeah, I love Toto. And I think it was 2001. My buddy Steve and I were down in Thousand Oaks, California, his stomping grounds growing up and going to high school in Los Angeles. And Toto is his favorite band of all time. So this was the first time I had a chance to see Toto live and in person. And it was at some small dinner theater, so a really small venue, which made the experience that much better because we were standing there right next to the stage when they were doing their concert, and being able to see Steve Lukather and company up close and personal was really sweet. But the best part is we got to the dinner theater early because we were going to go around the corner and have something to drink before the show. And as we pulled into the parking lot and got out of our rig, there was David Page, who stepped out of his rig, who's also a big-time songwriter and singer. He's the man that wrote Africa. He jumped out of his SUV. And so we said, hey, what's up? And we talked to him for a bit. And the band was jamming inside the dinner theater. They were doing a sound check, and the door was open. So Steve and I just rolled in and watched the sound check for quite some time before we went around to this little restaurant to get something to drink before the concert. But we had a chance to see them rehearse that song, and it was pretty sweet to watch Lukather, playing that guitar riff. And they're just going through their sound check. It was pretty sweet. Very enjoyable time. And I can't believe that was 25 years ago. What's going on, my friends? I've got a great, horrific, yet not surprising personal story to share. I'll get to that here in just a moment. And it was a pretty wild weekend, so I'll break that down for you. But a big announcement coming up tomorrow. Two different individuals are going to join the show that I'm excited about. First off, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson is going to call in and be a part of the show at 4:15. So we'll get his thoughts on the negotiations with the Trailblazers. We'll get his thoughts on the upcoming vote, which will be on Wednesday, the 12th, and we'll get his take on everything. And I appreciate Mayor Wilson because he's been one of the guys, out in front from the very beginning about the importance of keeping the Trailblazers in town, the importance of getting the funding put together to renovate Moda Center. The mayor's been very proactive in that process, which is good. Also, after we talk with Mayor Wilson, Council Chair Jamie Dunphy is going to join me in studio. So same type of situation with Jamie. We'll get his perspective on the negotiations. We'll talk about the term sheet. We'll get his take on the vote, which is coming up on Wednesday. So tomorrow we'll get a twofer. Mayor Wilson at 4:15, Council Chair Jamie Dunphy at 4:30. And I'm looking forward to conversations with both. And it's critical. This is a very important deal. Based on everything I'm hearing, it looks like we're going to get the yes vote, which is a great bit of news, and that will force the Blazers and the city into negotiations over the next few months as they come to terms on the deal, on the lease extension, and then they can get Moda Center upgraded, and we'll be good to go. So that's coming up tomorrow with the vote on Wednesday. Also, I'm going to be here today and tomorrow. And then Wednesday, I'm taking off on vacation. So I'm going to be gone for a little over a week, getting a chance to recharge the batteries. I'm heading down to L.A., and I'm going to catch a 4-game series with the Dodgers and the Milwaukee Brewers. So that is what's on the agenda for me. And inside of that, I'm trying to squeeze in as much golf as possible. I was out at Forest Hills on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning, and yesterday was perfect. I set the tee time at 6:12. I booked it the day before on Saturday, and my guy Joey told me that there was a group that was going out around 5:45, and then it would be me as a single at 6:12 and a group after me at 6:28. So I teed off at 6:12, and I was in the perfect little pocket where I walked up, I hit my next shot, and my next shot and proceeded to the next hole and just boom, 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 boom. 2 hours and 58 minutes on a Sunday morning. That is good living in the Northwest with the weather in absolute pristine condition right now. Great weather, great conditions on the golf course, and Forest Hills is spectacular right now. And I came about a foot away from acing the par 3 number 11. It was close, but a very successful round yesterday. You've got to get out. If you haven't been out to Forest Hills, the work that Marcus and his team have done on the course, it's really playing really well right now. The greens are in terrific condition. A little tip for you, if you're playing Forest Hills, do not get above the pin. If you're above the pin on pretty much any hole, you're in some deep doo-doo because the greens are fast and it's really hard to control the speed on those putts coming downhill. But the new tee boxes, some of the greens that they have either leveled off or extended, the dual fairway on 16, the different setup and different tee box options on the par 3 17th, it's great. So get out there and you can get your tee times now. Just go to golfforesthills.com and you can check it out. But it was beautiful. I got some good pictures yesterday too with the sun coming up, and it's very peaceful out there on the edge of wine country. Telephone number if you want to jump on board is 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Anything you want to talk about is fine by me. We will talk more NFL with Dave Bartu of MatrixEdgeAI.com. He has put together more information with the NFL that we're going to get into at 520 with some different projections. I mean, the work he's doing is terrific, and I love talking ball with him, so we're going to talk more football with him at 520. Also, I'm still efforting my man Daniel down in Phoenix, coming out of the kidney transplant. And I talked to him and Johnny a couple of days ago, and it was pretty awesome to hear that they're both in a good spot. They're both in recovery. It looks like the kidney has taken, and he was only in the hospital one more day than Daniel before they released him. But I talked to Johnny on the phone, and of course, keep in mind, he's been dealing with kidney failure for quite some time. But he said that he already feels instantly better. He said he feels like he's accessing different parts of his brain, his focus level, his mind, his thoughts. Everything is functioning at a high rate. And of course, his kidney function is already much more significant than what he had in the past. So it's just great to be able to see that come together, have everything be a success, but most importantly, his buddy Johnny getting a chance to really enjoy life, which is really cool. So I'm pretty excited about that. And Daniel's feeling well. He went for a walk. I think he got a couple of miles in. He said he still has some sharp pains from time to time from, the procedure and where they took the kidney out, but he's able to get up and move, and, he's no longer in the hospital. So he's doing well. Johnny's doing well. That is a successful story, which is great to hear. I love that. And I just think it's awesome that you have two guys who are best friends. Daniel got tested. It turns out he's a match, and now, boom, he's able to help his buddy out and transform his life. And with this newfound life and energy that Johnny has, what he told me was he can't wait to get back to work and to start doing things and to utilize his mind, which is no longer, foggy or cloudy from, the kidney issues he was having. That's pretty amazing. It's amazing that they have the ability to take a part from one person and put it into another person, and the body's able to take it, and those people can thrive, which is really cool. So I love that. Obviously, football season is right around the corner. This is going to be our first, full week of NFL preseason action. We'll have games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The Seattle Seahawks are going to play their first preseason game coming up on Saturday against the Cowboys. Kickoff at 5 from Lumen Field. And the Seahawks are one of those teams, of course, that you keep an eye on because they're the defending champs, but they also have a roster that's got a lot of continuity. A lot of guys are coming back from last year's squad. They're going to be one of the true contenders in the NFL, and I'm anxious to see what can be done with that offense with Sam Darnold. And then, of course, Mike McDonald, who we found out from Dave Bartu last week, one of the best defensive play callers in football. And last year with Kubiak, they were top 5 in offensive play calling and defensive play calling. So what's the adjustment going to be like post Clint Kubiak, who's now the head coach of the Raiders? But I really like what the Seahawks have put together. And I credit John Schneider, their general manager, who was given more power, more autonomy when Pete Carroll was let go. And I think that was the right decision to make. His job and the way he's put the roster together, the way he's restocked the cupboard, and the job he's done the last few years in the draft has been sensational. But also, you got to give him credit because he identified the coach and made the hire to bring in Mike Macdonald, who so far has been a perfect fit with the Seahawks in terms of what they want to do, how they want to play. And it's not easy when you come in and replace a legendary coach like Pete Carroll, who had tremendous success in Seattle. So instead of trying to be like Pete Carroll, he came in and he's just been himself. And if you want to look for a common denominator between successful coaches across all sports, they're usually the coaches who have their own convictions, they have things they believe in, and they just go out and coach it, and they're unapologetically themselves. They're genuine. And you've got to be like that because the players can sniff out someone who's not genuine. We see that with Dan Campbell. He's not Mike Macdonald, but Dan Campbell is himself. He's real. And players love to play hard for guys like that, which is really cool. So I'm excited about the Seahawks, but their first game's coming up on Saturday. All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. You can reach out. You can talk to me. Whatever you want to talk about is fine. A lot of different things I want to dive into, including the WNBA with the latest hard foul that we saw on Sophie Cunningham. I mean, the WNBA has got to get out in front of some of these sideshows and hopefully get back to a place where they can focus on some of the great talent they have in the league. All right, 503-248-0620. We'll come back, and I don't want to share the story, but I'm going to share the story because I can't believe it happened. So we'll do that next. I hope you're enjoying your Monday. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I want you to do me a favor. Raise your hand if you have a teenage driver in your household, a son or a daughter that has just started driving. Raise your hand, because I just went through that experience on Friday evening. My daughter, Kaylee, had completed her traffic safety. She had completed her grounding for sneaking out, and it was time to go and get the license. Now, the easy part was, since she had already completed the traffic safety, she didn't have to take a final test or a drive or anything like that. She just had to go in. The driving school had sent over the information to the Washington DMV, and so they had it right there in her computer, and so all they had to do was look it up, and then boom, she gets the license. So she was pretty excited about that, and understandable, because I was thinking back, a couple of days ago, like those, what's a good word for it? Like those big pillars in your life, or flagpole moments, or just some of the greatest memories that you have in the history of your life. Like, I'm not going to rank days because it's hard to remember back through all the different days of my life. But I do know that one of the greatest experiences and days in the history of my life was that day when I got my license and I had a chance to take off and go on that very first drive. And it was so great that I still remember it like it was yesterday, and it was 35 years ago. That's a long time, 35 years. So I've been driving a long time, like a lot of you have. But that first drive, there's nothing like it, because you think about it in your mind forever. You envision what it's going to be like. You think about the music you're going to play, the route you're going to take, everything. And so that was one of those situations where I had to call and schedule the appointment. And the problem is there was no appointments in the Vancouver area open the next day at the DMV. So my dad was like, well, why don't you expand your search and see if you can find one in one of the other towns outside of Vancouver. And so sure enough, Longview. I called the DMV office up in Longview. They had an opening the next day in the morning, and my dad said, let's book it. And so it was great. I had a chance to miss like the first period of school. We drove up to Longview. I did my driving test in a Dodge Caravan, of all things, for crying out loud. I even parallel parked that bad boy and got my license. I remember the music that was playing in the car on the ride back. My dad drove to and from the appointment. And then when I got home, it was time to take off to school. And so I got in, I cranked up Def Leppard Hysteria, and took off to Prairie High School. And it was an amazing feeling, like that first day of like total freedom where you're like, yes, I can go anywhere, do anything, right? It's a good feeling. So on Friday, I had looked the day before on Thursday. I was trying to book an appointment to get into the DMV. And I looked at both locations in Vancouver, one in Orchards and one in East County. And the next available appointment that you could book online was October 2nd. I'm like, what? That's forever. So I knew that wasn't going to work. So I thought, well, we'll just do a drop-in, and we'll have to wait a while, but we'll do a walk-in appointment. So I got Kaylee. We headed over to Orchards on Friday afternoon, and we went into the office, and the lady behind the plexiglass is like, yeah, we don't have any appointments. I'm like, no walk-in, no standby, nothing? She goes, no. She goes, you can use this little barcode, scan it, and then at 8:25 tomorrow morning, you can call, and it's first come, first serve, and you can try to get one of the appointments that will be open for a walk-in on Saturday. I'm like, well, that doesn't work very well. So we went on our way, and I went back to the car, and I thought, well, I think what I'll do is I'll book an appointment, because they had one open up for sometime this week, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I went back in. I said, well, can I go ahead and book the appointment for next week and use that as a backup in case nothing opens up tomorrow? She said, yes. So I booked the appointment, and we were all set up. And it was still, I think, probably maybe just before 4 o'clock. The DMV closes at 5. And so I thought, well, we can try. Let's drive up to East County. I said, we'll probably get denied. And you know how people are at the DMV. They're not exactly, what's a nice way of saying it? let's just say that customer service isn't necessarily at the top of their mind. At least I get that impression. Like they're not really worried about your customer experience when you go to the DMV. So we went to East County, walked in. This time it was a guy behind the plexiglass and said, "Hey, we would like to get a license. Do you have any walk-in appointments available?" And he's like, "No." And then he didn't say anything for like 2 minutes, but he was feverishly working his computer back there. And he goes, "I think I'm going to be able to slot you in." So he fit us in, and we waited for like 10 minutes. And then we walked up to the counter, and Kayla was able to get her driver's license. So there you have it. So she got her license on Friday. We went home, and then she went off for her first drive by herself. And she thought that was great. And then I came up with some other things I needed, like gas or a couple of things at the store. And so she did a couple of more drives on Friday, which was cool. On Saturday, she did 2 or 3 separate drives, driving around town, and really no rhyme or reason for what she was doing, but she was just experiencing that freedom, right? Well, yesterday, she decided to head over across town, East County, to go visit her boyfriend. And so she went over there, and she knew what the rules were. I was out and handling an event down at Spirit Mountain Casino. Her mom was working, so she conned Grandma and Grandpa into letting her use their car to drive over to see Caleb. So she drove over, and the rule was very simple. You got to be home before it's dark outside. So I called her and talked to her and said, "Hey, the sun's starting to go down. Are you planning on coming back?" And she goes, "Yep, I'm getting ready to leave right now." And so I got up the phone with her, and that was about 8:51, 8:52. Well, that's it, right? No. About 4 minutes later, I get a phone call from my daughter, and she's in hysterics, like crying uncontrollably, just saying, "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, Dad." And I'm like, "Oh, no, here we go." And what had happened is when she pulled out onto the main road from where her boyfriend's house is at, apparently a squirrel ran in front of the car, so she swerved, and in the process, she hit a parked car on the curb. And I was like, "Oh, my goodness." I said, "Honey, calm down. It's going to be okay." And I was trying to remain calm because I've always told her she can come to me for anything, and I want to be that rock for her, right? I want her to know that she can feel safe calling me for whatever she's need or whatever she gets herself into. And so I said, "Hey, just hold on. Was there anyone in the car?" "No." I said, "Okay, hold on. I'm going to come out and I'll help you with the process because we're going to have to exchange information with, the person who owns the car." Well, I jumped up. I had basically my sleeping clothes on, I'm with colored socks, so I looked ridiculous. But I just put on my shoes and took off to the other side of town. And I talked to the lady who owned the car, and she wasn't very happy. She had just put some money into the car. I don't think it's a newer car, but she had just put some money into it. I explained to her that, she's only been driving for 2 days, and made the apology, exchanged the information. And basically what happened is that, the front end on her car, the bumper got dislodged and busted. And you know how body work is too. It's not exactly the cheapest thing in the world. So my mind's like a calculator. So I'm just like, okay, that's probably about $3,000. And then I saw the front end of Grandma and Grandpa's car, and I was like, uh-oh, that's probably about $4,000. And so what she explained is that when she pulled out and the squirrel ran out in front of her and she swerved, she pushed the accelerator instead of the brake, which caused more force of the car going into the parked car. And there you have it. That's what happened. She didn't even make it 48 hours without the accident. And she was like crying and in hysterics. So I had to calm her down, and I made her drive the car back because I wanted her not to be afraid, not to have fear, right? And I said, "Honey, you got to calm down because I need you to drive." I said, "I've got my car. You're going to have to drive Grandma and Grandpa's car back." And she was worried about what they were going to think and what her mom was going to say. And so I was just trying to calm her down. But there you go. 2 days in, not even 2 days, and boom. And so my dad took his car to get the estimate on the work, and it came out to like $4,800, pretty much what I had anticipated. And that's body work for you, because you got, if you mess up the bumper, they just buy the new piece. One of the side panels got jacked. And so you calculate the cost of the, pieces that have to be bought. Then you got the labor charge, and then you got, obviously you got to find the right paint, and that's expensive paint. They got to match it. So there you go. So 2 days in, and boom, my daughter's already had a wreck. Brutal. Because of a squirrel. And so I explained to her, I was like, honey, swerving for a human, absolutely, 100% of the time. Always have to be on guard there. Swerving for a dog, yes. But if a rabbit or a squirrel or a rodent runs out in front of you, you just have to hope they get through the car without getting smooshed. That's what I told her. And that had happened, I don't know, a few months ago. Her and I was driving, and we were coming up, the roadway into the neighborhood, and a rabbit out of nowhere just jammed right out in front of the car, and I hit it with my back tire. And I was like, I felt bad because I love all animals. But like what I was telling her at the time, I said, look, I didn't want to hit that rabbit, but I said, we got a big ditch on our right. We got oncoming traffic to my left. I said, I'm not going to swerve and put us at risk for a rabbit. I don't want to kill it, but you know what I'm saying? Like you've got to calculate the cost there. But she did not remember that conversation. So there you go. So the insurance cost, whatever. There you go. So that's the excitement of being a parent. So if your kids are small, and let's say you have toddlers right now, and they're running around trying to jam their fingers into power sockets or whatever, just enjoy this time while you got it. They put everything in their mouth and being crazy and stuff. Or maybe they're storing Oreos in their underwear like Isaac used to when he was a kid. Just enjoy these moments, because the problems only get bigger and more expensive. And so, but I remained calm the whole way. And I was able to have a conversation with her, say, look, this is why we are always giving you reminders about this and about that. When you think we're being crazy, I said, this is why, because we understand what can happen. So there you go. That's the deal. Nothing like an inexperienced teen driver to get your day going in the right direction. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I wanted to share this. Don Nelson, Hall of Famer and winner of multiple championships with the Boston Celtics, has passed away at the age of 86. One of the most innovative and creative basketball minds of all time. Well, I came across this. Tom Tolbert, who was a former NBA player, played for Coach Nelly, and then became a Bay Area talk radio legend on KNBR. He took time to share his thoughts on Nelly once he got the news that the ball coach had passed away. And I wanted to share that with you because Tolbert's got a good perspective. But the great thing about Coach Nelson, anyone that played for him, they love him. And I enjoyed watching him play. No matter what team he was coaching, his innovation and willingness to shoot the three-point ball, to play smaller lineups and go with speed, like he would adapt and adjust and be willing to try anything. Very creative and a very interesting guy. And from multiple guys I've talked to, guys who played for him, his favorite thing to do after a game was crack open a Miller Lite and be able to sip and enjoy a nice little brewski after a game. And, of course, he was the head coach of the Golden State Warriors in that We Believe squad back in 2007 that took out the number one seed Dallas Mavericks in the first round. I think they became the first 8 to do that, but he was unique. But here is Tom Tolbert sharing his thoughts on Coach Nelson.
I've lost a former coach and a friend. Don Nelson, dead at the age of 86. 5-time NBA champ with the Boston Celtics as a player, 3-time NBA Coach of the Year. But what he's best going to be remembered for is his revolutionary basketball tactics. Anyone that's ever followed basketball knows what Nelly ball is. It's simply going small, having someone like me play center and guard Akeem or Ewing or Robinson In case you don't remember, it didn't go well for your boy. But oh, was it a lot of fun. Today, going small is about as revolutionary as brushing your teeth in the morning. But it wasn't just that. Go to '07, where his 8-seed Warriors took on the 67-win number 1 seed Dallas Mavericks and took them down in 6 games. The first team to ever beat a 1 seed as an 8 in a 7-game format. Nelly was just a great coach. He loved to tinker, and he loved to make other coaches adjust to him, which more often than not, they absolutely did. On a personal note, I just loved playing for the guy. My first year there, he was hard on me. But I knew if he was hard on me, he cared about me. In fact, he was so hard on me, my nickname was Goddammit Tolbert. I don't know if it was a nickname, but that's what he always called me. In fact, so much so that I went to the controller of the team and asked if they could make my checks out to Goddammit Tolbert. They said no, but I figured it was worth a shot. But the freedom he gave you to play basketball, if you made the right play, which everyone talks about today, winning basketball plays, pass ahead, cut through, set screens, always be on the move, or just standard practice today. He was a man who was way, way, way ahead of his time. A character, a great coach, and someone who lived life to its fullest. I'm going to miss you, Coach. I'm going to miss chatting with you. I'm going to miss texting you to see how things are going over on the island. And I'm sure there's thousands of other people out there that are going to miss you as well. So here's for you. I know you're a scotch drinker, but I've already done that. R.I.P., you dumb bastard. I love you, Coach.
There you go. That's Tom Tolbert. Well put. Yeah, Don Nelson was classic, man. What a great coach and what an innovative offensive mind. And it's cool because the guys I've talked to, like Kerry Eggers, Dwight James, the old school beat writers who had a chance to spend a lot of time around some of these old school coaches, they all revere him in terms of his openness, the way he was willing to communicate and share the game. And, of course, he won 5 titles with the Celtics. I mean, he was a part of those great Celtic teams back in the day. But Don Nelson has been basically involved in basketball my entire life. And he was a big golfer as well. But I thought Tom Tolbert summed it up well. All right, telephone numbers, 503-248-0620. You can jump on board. 503-248-0620. I've got some reaction to the story I shared about my daughter. Less than 2 days in, accident. Brutal. Just 100% brutal. Oh, my goodness. She was hysterical, too, when she called me. And as a dad, when you hear your daughter hysterical, it does things to your insides. All right, 503-248-0620. Dave Bartu talking ball coming up at 5:20 tomorrow. Mayor Wilson at 4:15. And then Council Chair Jamie Dunphy in studio at 4:30 as we get ready for the big vote coming up on Wednesday. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Rip City Drive. Yeah, this song, every time I hear it, I'm like, wow, it's so good. Phil Collins and Philip Bailey, Easy Lover. All right, my man Tony in Boring has reached out. I got to tell you, bro, I'm not buying the whole squirrel explanation, though. I think you're getting a tall tale. Usually it's a deer. It doesn't matter, though. She learned a lesson. Didn't get hurt, and she definitely will be more careful moving forward. I agree with that. You know, the good thing about this happening so early, less than 2 days after she got her license, one, she'll have to pay a penalty because more than likely her insurance costs in 6 months will go up, and she'll have to pay for that. So that's a good lesson. But also being a little more focused because that will be fresh on her mind. So she'll be more careful, more cautious, I would think. And that's a good thing. But the reason why I know that the squirrel explanation is not poppycock, it's because the entire family, her boyfriend and a couple of cousins and his grandma, they were all standing out there on the lawn as she was driving away. So they saw it happen. So they saw the entire thing break down. So I know that she wasn't giving me a tall tale because they were witnesses, and I had 6 different witnesses as to what happened. Fortunately, she was not hurt, as Tony mentioned, but also there was nobody in the car that was parked, which is a good thing. Now, I do know that the lady who owned the car before I got there, she was not nice to my daughter. So I think that made the situation worse for her in the moment. But it would appear that that's how it happened. Now, the other thing that I think played into the error, and this gave me a migraine when I heard about it, but I think she was wearing flip-flops or some type of sandals. I tried driving once in flip-flops, and I don't wear flip-flops. I hate them, to be honest with you. But I had to go somewhere. I don't know where I was at, but I was trying to drive with flip-flops, and I was like, well, this ain't working. So I took them off and just went barefoot until I got back home. So I think what happened is, as she swerved with the little squirrel, the rodent, I think she went to hit the brake, and my guess is her foot probably slipped, and she hit the accelerator and then rammed into the car. Nice to play a little bumper cars on a Sunday evening. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Sean in Damascus. That sucks. Reminds me, I'm glad I don't have any kids. I'd have gray hair instantly. Yeah, that's probably true. Let's go out to the phones. West Lynn, my man Paul in West Lynn is out there. Paul, welcome to the show. Fire away, buddy.
Thanks, Chad. My heart goes out to both you and your daughter. That was a horrible experience so soon after getting her license. I'm really sorry that happened.
I appreciate that.
Lesson.
Yes. I'd rather her learn a lesson when no one gets hurt.
Yeah, and it says she's got a big heart if she was so concerned about the squirrel. You're raising some good kids. I remember a week after getting my driver's license, I was dating a girl at opposite school, at a rival school, and I thought it'd be cool and pick her up after school. And I got a car accident, like, almost near the entrance of the school. And so it created a lot of eyes on me when I was trying to be cool, and it was very embarrassing. So I know what it's like to be 16 and have an accident. I'm glad, at least for her, it wasn't in front of a rival high school.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So, on the sports, I was watching the WWE, actually the WNBA, or at least the highlights. I feel like it's really, like you hinted on it, it's very sad. It's not like the action that happens in the ring. It's all the drama outside of the ring, and that's what the WNBA has become. It's become very political, and you've made your show political, obviously, by being so strongly against communism. So you're kind of creating this scenario here where we got to talk about politics in the WNBA, but, man, they had a good thing going there with Caitlin Clark, and they're getting interest, and Portland's got a team. But it seems like all the talk is everything besides basketball. It's political issues, and it's really sad what could be a burgeoning business for the WNBA. And then my other comment, NBA owners are always in the news. We don't talk about Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer much, But I got a feeling Tom Dunnan's not too happy with Steve Ballmer by setting the example of paying more than he really had to for a player. And that's what I'm concerned about. I think he's mad that the precedent has been set. Damn it, Steve. You can't be paying more for people. What do you think?
I appreciate that, my friend. That's Paul. Appreciate your phone call, Paul. The WNBA right now is in what could be the golden era of their league because you have so many great young stars, even outside of Caitlin Clark. A lot of great basketball players in the WNBA. And what you want, hopefully, from your league is that the stories and the focus is on the tremendous talent and the way that they play basketball. And when you can focus on that and you have these good stories and people to share with the fans, they'll get excited about the games, and then hopefully you grow your fan base. And I'm watching more WNBA now than I ever have. And it's because of the young stars, which is great. But when you have all of these other sideshows going on, whether it's, political discourse or people showing up to protest or the officiating, which is really bad, it's unfortunate because it takes away the attention from the ladies who are, playing a great brand of basketball. So I'm hoping they get to a point to where, they can have more focus on the games, the players, and some of the teams, because there's some great storylines there. And that's why I kind of like the approach that Caitlin Clark is taking right now, where she's avoiding answering questions. She's taking the Michael Jordan approach, where she's like, hey, I'm going to focus on basketball. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm hoping that that example is something the WNBA can follow to where you have the focus where it needs to be, because they have a chance to really grow their game right now with the young stars. And they've got a ton of them, which is terrific. All right, 503-248-0620. And I've been very impressed with the Fire's operation so far. Great fan support and playing much better basketball in year number one as an expansion team than what I would have anticipated, which is cool. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Dave Bartu talking some ball coming up at 5:20. I'm still efforting my man Daniel, who is avoiding me, but I want him to share the response after coming out of surgery, donating a kidney to his best friend, and they're both doing very well. You want to reach out and talk to me, 503-248-0620. I appreciate your time. And you can find me on social at Chad and Rip City, right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, we start with the NFL. It's 4 o'clock. Lions center Cade Mays is going to be out 8 to 10 weeks after suffering a wrist injury. The Cowboys and their defensive tackle Quentin Williams have reached a 3-year extension worth $105 million. And Teddy Bridgewater has officially retired again from the NFL, saying this time it's official. The Seahawks are going to play their first preseason game coming up on Saturday. They'll host the Cowboys. Kickoff at 5 from Lumen Field. The Portland Fire will host the Minnesota Lynx Wednesday from Moda Center. That tip-off is at 7. The Mariners' struggles continue. They're now 4 games back in the AL West. They open a series in New York tomorrow against the Yankees. Tomorrow on the Rip City Drive, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson will join the show at 4:15, and Council Chair Jamie Dunphy in studio at 4:30 ahead of the all-important City Council vote coming up on Wednesday. Dave Bartu going to stop by at 5:20. All right, a terrific 2026 class that was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Quarterback Drew Brees, who had Sean Payton, Broncos head coach, introduce him. Of course, those two connected forever with their time in New Orleans together. But Drew Brees, wildly productive, one of the most productive quarterbacks in NFL history, without question, a Hall of Famer. And he and his wife have done tremendous things in the community there in New Orleans. Also, running back Roger Craig, former 49er great. I've had a chance to meet him in person on a couple of occasions. Really respect him and the way that he conducts himself, the way he played as a player. So tough. He had that unique running style with his knees up high in the air. And his unique ability to be able to not only run the football, but in that West Coast offense with Bill Walsh, he was a tremendous receiver and the first guy to get 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. But Roger Craig was a special, special player. And those 49er teams in the 80s, we're talking about, great players everywhere. Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Brent Jones, Roger Craig. You can just go up and down the line. Ronnie Lott. But Roger Craig was a special player and obviously well-deserving of that yellow jacket. Wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, as I mentioned before, one of my favorite non-Broncos of all time. Terrific human being, really tough, and a very productive wide receiver. Linebacker Luke Kuechly and Adam Vinatieri, who was one of the greatest kickers of all time and a clutch kicker. And, of course, the game I remember the most was in the snow in New England as they were beginning their dynasty run in the tuck rule game when he hit a couple of clutch kicks in the snow, the blizzard, which is amazing to me. And I mentioned this before about Larry Fitzgerald. He is known as a guy that would go around to defensive backs, before a game on the opposing team. And he said, hey, hit me high. I'll pay your fine, but don't hit me low, because he was trying to protect his base, knowing that he needed his feet, his ankles, his legs to be strong in order to be able to play and do his job at the highest level possible. But Adam Vinatieri, it was like an evening at the Improv with the kicker. And I didn't know, we don't hear from kickers much. They don't really talk to the media that much. The kicker never wants to make a big name for themselves. They just want to be known as the guy that always comes through in the clutch. And if they can be that guy and step up and make big kicks for their team, that's all that needs to be done. But you never really want to hear too much from your kicker in the media. I don't think players would take too kindly to that. It's like, dude, you're a kicker. And like Peyton Manning, when he famously went off on Mike Vanderjagt from the Pro Bowl, where he said, our idiot kicker is out there running his mouth. Like, you don't want to be that guy. So you don't hear from these guys too much, and you never get a real feel for their personality. with Vinatieri, I just knew him as a guy that was really clutch. And you could count on him to make big kicks with the Patriots or the Colts. A couple of great organizations he played for, great coaches, guys like Bill Belichick and Tony Dungy. He had great quarterbacks in Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He lived a charmed life as an NFL kicker without question, but he was good. And he was clutch, and he made big kicks when he had to, which is nice. But he was limited up during his speech at the Hall of Fame. Take a listen to this when he discusses head coach Bill Belichick.
I would repeat those last few statements about Coach Bill Belichick as well. Thank you for demanding excellence every single day. Your preparation, discipline, and attention to detail shaped far more than my football career. Unfortunately, Bill couldn't make it here today. There's a lot going on at UNC right now. He may be on a recruiting trip right now looking for the next Lawrence Taylor. I thought it was because training camp had already started, but in truth, it's because he's judging his girlfriend's cheerleading competition.
There you go. Adam Vinatieri. I heard him with Dan Patrick today, and he said that his son worked with him on the speech and some of the jokes. This one here is like, no way, I can't believe he said that. Here he is talking about Pat McAfee, who was his teammate and his holder in Indianapolis.
Pat McAfee's here in the crowd today. Great to see you, brother. The only person who enjoyed holding my balls more than my wife. She held for me in the offseason when everyone else was gone.
Hey-o! That's the kicker right there, if you can believe that. He also got a jab in on Peyton Manning and the size of his forehead, which is enormous. Two of my favorite quarterbacks ever, and the two greatest Bronco quarterbacks of all time. Peyton Manning had an abnormally large forehead, and John Elway had an exceptional amount of enamel. Very interesting. But Adam Vinatieri is in, and it's really tough for a kicker to get into the Hall of Fame. The one position and the one guy that deserves to be in the Hall, and I'm hoping he gets a chance one day, is Lorenzo Neal, who blocked for some of the best running backs, including LaDainian Tomlinson. But Lo Neal was a super stud. Great blocker, great athlete, incredibly strong, and knew the offense really well and how to direct the players on offense, especially working with the offensive line. But Lo Neal deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But kicker's right up there. It's hard to get in. But that tells you everything you need to know about Vinatieri. He's known as one thing, clutch. And that's what you want your kicker to be, a guy that you can depend on regardless of distance when you're in the fourth quarter. There's a few ticks on the clock. Can a guy hit a game-tying field goal? Can he hit the game winner? You've got to have guys who have the confidence to be able to step up in those situations. But Vinatieri, man, a little night at the Improv there with the jokes. Love to crack on Bill Belichick, but the best part is about him, and, like a lot of players, he loves those guys, and he misses the relationships. He misses the time in the locker room where you get that bonding amongst teammates. And most of the guys I've talked to, when you ask them what they miss most about the game, they'll tell you it's the guys, being around the fellas, like that really unique camaraderie they have because of the work they're putting in, the pressure. They can all relate to one another. They're all in the middle of the grind throughout the course of the season, the work that they put in. And I've always thought it was interesting with kickers because I've been to training camps before and I've been to practices. And if you watch a football practice, whether it's college or the NFL, you've got the entire team on the field working and doing what they're supposed to be doing with their units. Offensive line, defensive line, secondary, linebackers, the whole deal, right? Running backs. They're all focused on, attention to detail and getting prepped for the upcoming game and working on the game plan. But the kickers, the punter and the place kicker, they're all off to the side. So they're kind of in their own world, right? They're over there working on whatever it is they're working on. So they're kind of detached from the team because they're not doing the same type of work that they are. But they're critical to the success of a team because when you're in a clutch situation and you need a guy to make a field goal, you need those guys to come through. And we've all had moments where our teams have had bad kickers, and you know what it's like. Vinatieri comes out on the field, you know he's going to make it. But some of the kickers that I've seen, they walk out and you're like, he's got no chance to make this. You have no confidence, right? Because you know they're going to feel the pressure. They're going to shank it. It's not going to work out. Something's going to go sideways. But the good kickers, they always come through when it matters most. And he was able to do that a couple times in Super Bowls as well. Very impressive. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can reach out. You can jump on board. I'd love to hear your voice and see what's cracking with you. Mayor Wilson will join the show tomorrow at 4:15. And then Council Chair Jamie Dunphy in studio at 4:30. So any questions you have, if there's something you would like to know from the mayor or from the council chair, you can let me know and I'll ask the questions. But the vote's coming up on Wednesday. And if they get the yes vote with the city council and they agree on a term sheet, then they can enter into the negotiation period with the Blazers. And they'll have a few months before the December deadline to be able to come to terms and get that lease extension signed. But I think we're in a really good spot. And I'm excited to talk to both of those individuals tomorrow to see where we're at, what they think about the vote that's coming up on Wednesday, what they think about the term sheet, and the efforts and everything that's going into the process right now to get the job done. But the state jumped on board early. We got the vote from the county last week to move forward, and now it's up to the city. Let's go out to the phones. My man Pat in Portland wants to jump on board. Hey, Pat, appreciate the call. You're back on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad. Boy, you sure woke up my mind today when you came on and told your story about your daughter. Being blind, I'm blind, and I've been that way since I was 10 years old, but I was married and had 4 kids. 3 of my kids went through that whole process of getting their driver's license, and I'll tell you, it was an interesting situation to go riding with them after they got their license. Even being blind, you sat there and you went, you wanted to hold on to everything. You wanted to make sure that, but they turned out to be okay drivers, so that's
good.
The main thing.
But the fact that you were blind did not make it any easier, even though you couldn't see what was going on.
No, not at all. It was kind of like, okay, are we going to make it through this light, or are we going to do this, or are they going to stop in time? The whole thing, like you did. But it was good that you handled that real well as a father. And the thing is, if your daughter ever needs a person to give her a transportation ride somewhere, I'll be her driver for her if you need me.
Well, I appreciate that because I'm a little concerned about her taking off again, But the problem is she needs to keep driving, But right now I would feel safer with you driving her than her driving. Good gracious.
Well, here I wanted to talk about the old NBA, and you're talking about the players and this gentleman that just passed away. He was a
Don
great
Nelson.
individual. Yeah, Don. He was a great individual, played good, played on some interesting teams. Boston was just a dynasty back in the day. I can remember when I could still watch them play against New York and play against L.A., and those guys were tough back then. They played a whole different brand of basketball. It was guys just got down and got dirty and got it done, and it was entertaining. But boy, they sure could play rough. I remember my favorite player was Wesley Unseld from the Bullets, and man, that dude was short, like 6'7", but boy, he didn't take no guff off nobody. But it was fun, But now we play today, and it's a whole different thing, but it's still entertaining, and that's the cool part about it is we can look back, but we surely know that we got a good brand of basketball today too. So
no, and I love that you referenced Wes Unseld, Pat. That's one of the toughest basketball players of all time. Not someone you want to rumble with there. Yeah, Don Nelson, long NBA career as a coach. Started out with Milwaukee, with the Bucks, and coached from 76 up until 87. Then he went to the Golden State Warriors. He was with the Warriors from 88 up until 95. He spent a year in New York. Then he went to Dallas, where he coached from 97 up until 05, and then went back for his final stint, 4 more years with the Golden State Warriors, and had that impressive We Believe run in 07 when they took out the Mavericks in the first round. Well, that team was fun to watch, too, with Baron Davis, Jason Williams, Matt Barnes. They had some exciting players on that team. Andres Beatrins. That was a great series. They won that one in 6. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive. Hope you're enjoying your Monday. Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Rip City Drive. Dave Bartu, MatrixEdgeAI.com, coming up at 5:20. He's been working on some different things over the course of the weekend, and I'm excited to talk to him again. Like, he's doing a lot of work. And he sent me over some of the stuff that he had been working on, but it's pretty impressive. And I think you'll enjoy it. But Dave Bartu is a very smart guy. So he's got NFL preseason previews, and he's got new info on the entire league in terms of team previews. So we're going to walk through some of the teams and get his take on that coming up at 5:20. And I'm still efforting my man Daniel. The surgery for the kidney transplant was successful, and I had a chance to talk to him and Johnny over the weekend, and they both sound great. It's pretty impressive. Very excited about that. And he was hitting me up this morning about how much water I drink, and apparently with the checkup he had, they want to drink a little bit more water, but he's doing well. And Johnny, I think, is his kidney function, he's able to pee now. He's able to, he said he had more clarity in terms of his thought. Like, his whole body function is just better. And now they're both on the process of recovery. So, we'll get an update from Daniel. I am efforting him. But Dave Bartu talking some football coming up at 5:20. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. You can reach out. Jump on board. Whatever you want to talk about is fine by me. Tomorrow, Mayor Wilson will join the show at 4:15. And then Jamie Dunphy, the council chair, will be in studio at 4:30. So we'll have a chance to cover everything as we get ready for that all-important vote coming up on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to that. And based on everyone I've talked to, it looks like we're on track for the yes vote, which is great. And there's a good piece out right now. I just had some information sent to me by a friend, but OPB is doing some good reporting along with Wright Gazaway on the whole negotiation between the city and the team right now. So looking forward to it. But it'll be nice. And I think a lot of people, not everyone, but some of the sports fans, Blazer fans here in town, this whole entire process has allowed them to become, politically active for maybe the first time, where they're taking an interest in seeing how the process plays out and letting their voice be heard, which is pretty cool. I like to see that kind of stuff take place. Sometimes all it takes is just something that's important to us to where we engage and become active. And I think this is one of those areas that touches a lot of people here in the area because, the Blazers are such a big part of the community. But I think we're on track. We'll get the yes vote on Wednesday, and then the city and the team can enter into that process of negotiation. But they're on track. And so the way I see this playing out, they'll get the yes vote on Wednesday, and then they'll enter into the process of negotiation, and then we'll find out sometime in December that they've reached agreement, and there'll be an extension with the lease, and the Blazers are going to be in place here in Portland for an extended period of time, which is good. And then the best part is we can relax and focus on basketball. Like, namely, how's it all going to work out with Ja Morant now on the roster? How are the Blazers going to do defensively with a backcourt featuring Ja and Dame? And how will Mike Inori, their new head coach, manage the rotations with, smaller players? How are they going to be effective defensively? Are they going to be able to make enough threes, score enough points on those nights when defensively they're having some issues? And how will Denny Avdia, their best player, fit into a situation where you have so many guys who need the basketball in their hands? Because this team's at their best when Denny Avdia is on the attack and penetrating and setting up his teammates. And I think one thing we might see with Scoot Henderson, I still have a lot of high hopes for Scoot. Maybe he's just going to play more off ball this year. Scoot's a unique player where he can be a point guard and handle the rock and initiate the offense, but he's also, quickly learning how to play off ball, to put himself in a position to make an impact, to utilize his athleticism. So those are the things I'd rather focus on instead of, the political nature of this negotiation and the importance of getting that, yes vote on Wednesday, and then, coming to terms on, the term sheet, and then getting that extension on the lease in place sometime in December. So that's what we're looking at. But it's coming up on Wednesday, and we'll talk to Mayor Wilson and Jamie Dunphy tomorrow. But if you have any questions, you can reach out multiple ways. You can find me on social at Chad Rip City. You can reach out to me on my cell phone, 360-281-5473, and hit me up directly. If you've got specific questions or things that you would like to have answered, maybe there's something about this process that you're unclear on. Maybe there's something that you want to know from Council Chair Dunphy or Mayor Wilson directly. Well, now's the time because we're going to have a chance to talk to both of them tomorrow. And it's been a pretty wild week. We had the public testimony last week, followed by the county vote. And now we're in a position for what's going to happen on Wednesday. So there you have it. That's what's going on. Outside of that, football camps are right around the corner. And the NFL preseason will kick off. We had the Hall of Fame game. And now we're going to get our first full week of NFL action starting on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Seahawks will play their first game on Saturday against the Cowboys. And, we'll see how things shake out. But so many competitive, good teams on both sides, AFC and NFC. I think both sides are deep. I think there's going to be a lot of compelling division races, and I'm looking forward to the season. Now, the one thing I did want to add, too, going back to Tony Romo, J.J. Watt, of course, has been named by CBS as their lead analyst to replace Tony Romo while he's on leave and work with Jim Nantz. And I think J.J. Watt's got a chance to develop into a terrific analyst, and I'm excited to hear what he sounds like with Jim Nantz, who, of course, is awesome. I mean, Jim Nantz is one of the very best. And I think Tony Romo has deteriorated as an analyst. I never was a fan of his analysis, predicting the plays, his weird energy. Like, I've never been a fan, and I think you know that if you've listened to me. But for the people who really appreciated his insight, even the CBS execs, based on reports, there's been a decline. And, of course, I think it was like a year ago, maybe a little over a year, where, according to reports, they had a closed-door meeting, like an intervention where they're trying to rein Romo back in, because the novelty was starting to wear off. And, of course, Tony Romo makes big money, I think in excess of $18 million a year. So my guess would be this, based on how things have played out so far. Tony Romo makes huge money. He was their number one analyst working with Jim Nantz. He was deteriorating, according to many in his broadcasts, and they were probably looking for a way to get off of him, right? Like, his act was growing old. Not surprising because it's Tony Romo. I think he's terrible. But they were real quick after the DUI that he got in Wisconsin to name a replacement and put J.J. Watt in and let everyone know that Watt was going to be working with Nantz. Well, let me just put it this way. If Romo was still wildly popular and well-respected for the work that he had done, and they didn't have to have the intervention where they're trying to get him back on track, and he wasn't being clowned by football fans at all times, my guess is they would not have named a replacement in J.J. Watt so quickly. They would let the process play out, and then at some point during the season, Romo would return. But this looks like it's turning into a situation where I don't think Tony Romo is going to come back with CBS. They were quick to put Watt in there. I think they want to give Watt a look, and they believe that he's probably got a chance to become the number one analyst working with Nantz. And then with Tony Romo, my guess is what they'll do is they'll work with his agent and try to come up with some buyout scenario. And from what I read, I did not know this, but apparently in Wisconsin, the way that they penalize you for your first DUI, it's looked at as a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So he'll end up probably paying a fine, and then you move on. I think it's like DUI number 2 and 3 where, the penalties are much more severe in Wisconsin. But this is probably the gift from above that CBS was not anticipating. They were unhappy with his work. They're paying him big money, but they had no clear way to get off of him. And then all of a sudden, he comes crashing down to earth with the DUI. So I think it's quite possible that they work out a buyout, and then Romo moves on, CBS moves on, and then we'll see if J.J. Watt can fill the shoes and work with Jim Nantz. And my guess would be yes. It can't be that hard to do a better job than Tony Romo. J.J. Watt, right out of the gate's not going to yell Jim. Well, gee, Jim. He's not going to do that like 100 times a broadcast. So I think J.J. Watt's got a chance. But like I said, I was a Phil Simms fan, and they moved out for Simms and brought in Tony Romo. I'm not sure what's up with that. So there you have it. And some people care about the broadcasters, some don't. Usually when I'm watching a game, aside from Romo, who I have to mute time to time because he's out of control, everyone else, I think, just does a pretty good job. Like, I don't listen to other analysts when it comes to the NFL and have any type of issue. They all do a pretty good job. And then I have certain play-by-play guys that I really love. Jim Nantz would be right at the top of the list. A big fan of Ian Eagle, who's one of my favorite broadcasters. And he can do many different sports, including the NBA and college basketball. Does a great job with the NFL. I mean, it's not too often I get hung up on broadcasters, unless they're really bad and they stand out and drive me crazy. And then obviously I have local guys I like. Like if I'm going to tune into a Oregon State Beaver game, I would prefer to hear Mike Parker. I'm a big fan of Jerry Allen. He's a really awesome guy. I like to listen to him on Duck games. And there's a lot of those, college football broadcasters that I appreciate as well. Kirk Herbstreit drives me crazy with the dogs all the time. Like even on Dan Patrick today, had his dog in his lap. It's like, dude, I get it. You love dogs, but just give me your thoughts on football. Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler are great. Chris Fowler, I'm a huge fan of. I think he does a great job as a play-by-play guy in college football. I really enjoy his call. And then anytime I can get Petros Papadakis on color on a college football game, I'm in. I'm a big fan of Petros. He does a great job on his radio show down in L.A. I think he does a great job as a color analyst doing football games. I like his energy. He's funny. He does a fine job. And Tom Brady, as I mentioned before, it pains me to say it, but he is a awesome NFL analyst. And not surprising, right? For some of these quarterbacks or former players who are just all about the detail and wanting to be great at everything they do, it's not surprising to me that Tom Brady has been able to develop into, in 2 years, one of the best in the biz. And then Kevin Burkhardt does a great job as a play-by-play guy. They have formed a really nice, tandem. I also like Greg Olson. Thinks he does a terrific job. And Mark Schlereth, who does local radio in Denver, also one of the Fox analysts. I enjoy listening to him. He was a big part of the Broncos' back-to-back Super Bowls, played with Elway, but he's well-spoken and understands the game, and he's well-connected within the league with a lot of coaches, which allows him to bring good insight. So the NFL's got a lot of good broadcasters. But Tony Romo, it's like a blessing before football season. Football season is almost here. We're just a few weeks away from the opener, and we know that we're not going to be subjected to Tony Romo. It doesn't get any better than that. Jim. It's like, dude, I already love football. You didn't need to do this, CBS. I would have watched anyway, but you've just made the product better. The only downside is that we don't get to see the incredible bromance that continues to develop between Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. I mean, Jim Nantz loves Tony Romo. Not sure why, but you can see it in his eyes. And that's why he's able to put up with all of the different nonsense that Tony Romo brings to the booth, which I think is pretty funny. Elsewhere, some of the other things I'm gathering, the reports coming out of Bears camp is that Caleb Williams looks terrific. He's lost somewhere between 10 to 15 pounds, so he's quicker, but he's showing more flashes of accuracy in the passing game. And I think it's going to be critical because the Bears, they're one of those teams that, coming off a playoff berth, looking to get back. I'm just concerned that their defense, it's going to have to be an offensive type game. They've invested a lot of money in the offense. They're going to need Caleb Williams to step up and continue that development. But I think Ben Johnson did a really good job with him last year, and I want to see if he can continue to take that next step. But his mobility, his athleticism, and the things that he can do when plays break down are terrific. Great arm strength, but more importantly, learning to, manipulate the defense, understand what they're doing, and then layer throws and be on time and accurate. That's everything. And Caleb Williams is progressing. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Dave Bartu from MatrixEdgeAI.com is coming up at 520. You can reach out to me at 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Scotty Bethune is funny. He just sent me a tweet and said, "So, Chad, the current list," and he's referring to my current kid rankings in the Doing household. He has Isaac number 1, Puppy Shots number 2, number 3 is blank, and then Kaylee is at number 4, following her wreck hitting the parked car last night, less than 2 days after getting her driver's license. That was not a good experience. But yes, I would say right now, and I've got to think clearly about this, Isaac is definitely number 1 on the current kid rankings. And just so you're wondering, like, what the heck are the kid rankings? Just like the NFL, we have power rankings, or college football has power rankings. You know, they put them out every week before games. I have kid rankings that I put out every week. And the power rankings, just like we see in football, they change all the time based on different actions of the kids. And I have 3 of them. My daughter Kaylee, my son Isaac, and my little furry son, Puppy Shots, the miniature dachshund. Isaac is number 1. He has been he's been pretty good of late. He's still working and grinding, doing the Uber Eats, working his tail off, saving up to get his Toyota 4Runner. I asked him to send me a list of exactly what the expectations are and what he wants to do on the road trip down south. I've got to read that list to you because I think you'll find it entertaining. But the best part is, for someone who's autistic like Isaac, if I know exactly what he wants to do and I have a list and we just check off those boxes, I know he's going to be happy no matter what. So Isaac's been on top of things. He would be number 1. Puppy Shots should be lower on the list, but based on what took place last night, he is number 2. He has been barking too much of late, and that's saying something for a dachshund because they always are yapping. But during the summertime, with the sun going down later and coming up earlier, it gives him more time to roam the backyard looking for critters. And I caught him 2 nights ago. I heard that rapid bark like he had cornered something, and I walk out there, and there's a gigantic possum that's staring at him, kind of hissing, and Shots is barking, not knowing what to do. He gets up early. He'll come and scratch, on my door at all hours. He's out of control. And I think he's going to get the flea dip tonight. I discovered a flea, and of course, when he's scratching and itching, it drives him crazy. So he's a problem. But number 2, and then Kaylee, after last night, number 3. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Scotty. Thank you. Let's go out to Bend. Brady in Bend wants to talk about the Trailblazers. Brady, I appreciate the call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, you were talking about different broadcasters there in football. I'm just kind of curious where the Blazers are for the broadcasting crew next year and what's going on. I'm totally blind at this point. Really appreciate the radio broadcasting part because they're so much more thorough on their play-to-play. And kind of curious if you know where they're at this point after Kevin walking and them getting rid of Michael. And
I do.
Any updates on that?
I do. I'll tell you what I know right now. At this point, I fully anticipate Travis Demers being back on radio call doing the radio broadcast. So I would expect Travis Demers back on radio, which is great, and I think he does a good job. Now with TV, I know Lamar Hurd is going to be back. I know Brooke Olzendam is going to be back, but I do not know who the television play-by-play individual is going to be yet. But in terms of broadcast, we will have a radio broadcast. I expect Travis to be on the call. TV broadcast, Lamar will be there. Brooke will be there. We just need to identify the play-by-play voice, but that has not been announced yet. And I do not know. I haven't heard. I've been searching for that information, and I haven't been able to uncover anything. And even the people I know who are in the know, they don't know anything. So that's been the elusive name to get an idea of what they're looking at for TV. But I do know Lamar and Brooke are back on the TV side, and I fully expect Travis to be doing radio calls, on our station.
I know they were talking about possibly combining and only having one, and I appreciate the TV and both sides, but a lot of times
there will not be a simulcast this year. That much I can tell you. There will not be a simulcast this year, 100%.
Good. The TV guys get tracked too much.
Well, especially we have Blind Pat that calls in. And of course, I would imagine, Brady, you're similar to me. Like, I appreciate a radio call because I grew up listening to radio, but especially if you have a hard time seeing the detail that you get from a good radio broadcaster, they're calling the game, having to paint the picture. So it's a totally different call from what you would get watching the television. And if you're blind or you have a hard time
see
seeing,
the whole thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you see it all. Yeah, totally. Yep. So, hey, I appreciate the update, man.
Hey, what's the weather like out in Bend right now? Is it awesome?
It finally cooled off a few degrees today. It's been upper 80. Well, we've tipped 100 a couple times, and pretty smoky. So, yeah, it's less than awesome.
How long have you been out in Bend?
I moved over here in '96. I grew up on that side of the mountain. Grew up a little town of Vernonia out there, and
oh, nice.
Lived in Portland and Beaverton and all that. Moved over here when I was about 26, whatever, in '96 though, and always wanted to live over here for all the recreation and everything. I love it. But
what's it been like to see the growth? How much has it grown from '96 when you moved out there?
Way too much.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. It's well, we got California here now, so yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Brady, hey, I appreciate you, buddy. I appreciate the call, and thank you. And but yeah, you'll be able to get your radio broadcast so you can follow the Blazers.
Yeah, look forward to it, man. Have a good trip.
You got it, buddy. Appreciate you. There's Brady out in Bend. Wanted to make sure that we're still going to have radio broadcasts. We are. I think even the Blazers have announced that. I know for a fact because I'm privy to the radio discussions. There will not be a simulcast. It will be a radio broadcast. And we'll have official details on that soon. But, yeah, Travis Demers, I fully expect him to be back calling games for the Blazers this year. So we got the radio team, Travis Demers, and I don't know. Like, I don't know who the TV play-by-play individual is going to be. And I've been trying to figure it out. And I've got bosses who should be able to get that information. They can't get the information. So I don't know. I just know it's not going to be Kevin Calabro, unfortunately. But Brooks back. I love Lamar. And, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. But most importantly, we got to get through the vote on Wednesday. I just want to get back to a point where, once the lease gets signed, we can get back to some good, healthy, basketball nonsense about undersized guards, defense, ridiculous trade ideas, the usual. All right, I'll share it with you. I'll share that list that Isaac sent to me. I asked for a list of details, things he wanted to do on this upcoming road trip. I mean, he is detailed. And I'll share that with you. We'll talk football. Dave Bartu coming up at 5:20. Daniel has reached out to me and said he promises he'll come on the show tomorrow. And you can reach out to me at 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, it's now 5 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? The Mariners, well, at least they have the day off. They're 4 games back in the AL West as they continue to struggle. They'll open up a series in New York tomorrow against the Yankees as they kick off a long road trip. The Portland Fire will host the Minnesota Lynx Wednesday at Moda Center. That tip-off will be at 7 o'clock. A reminder, Rip City Drive tomorrow with me. Portland Mayor Keith Wilson will join the show at 4:15, and then Council Chair Jamie Dunphy in studio at 4:30 to answer your questions ahead of Wednesday's vote for the City Council. Lions center Cade Mays out 8 to 10 weeks after suffering a wrist injury. The Cowboys have locked up Quinnen Williams, their defensive tackle, for 3 years. The extension worth $105 million. Teddy Bridgewater retiring from the NFL again, but this time he says it's official. The Hawks will play their first preseason game Saturday at Lumen Field. The host of Cowboys. Kickoff is at 5. All right, Dave Bartu from MatrixEdgeAI.com is coming up at 5:20. And he's got a lot of good info. He has been working feverishly on his new website, MatrixEdgeAI.com. Telephone number here is 503-248-0620. You can jump on board. Whatever you want to talk about is fine by me. And then don't forget tomorrow, Mayor Keith Wilson at 4:15. And I'll have him for probably 15 to 20 minutes. And then Council Chair Jamie Dunphy is going to be in studio at 4:30. Your telephone number, 503-248-0620. Hope you're enjoying your Monday afternoon. The weather, of course, spectacular. Now, I mentioned this before. So basically what happened is I was supposed to take a road trip this past weekend to Napa and Boise with Isaac. My buddy Luke, my workout partner, was participating in a Spartan race that was in Boise this past weekend. And I was going to go out there. Isaac loves going out to Napa. I was going to go out there and, we could stay a couple of nights in the hotel. And I was going to let him drive us to and from because he thinks that's pretty cool. But I had to cancel because I had some work things pop up. So I had to cancel the trip. And I felt bad about that. And so I said, Isaac, I'm not going to be able to go to Idaho this week. And he's like, oh, no problem. There's too much smoke anyway. So he didn't seem too bummed about it. But I said, we could look at something else. So he hit me back. He goes, well, what are you doing, around Labor Day? And he wants to head down south. He loves going to California. So he wants to go to Auburn and Colfax. Not sure why. Those aren't exactly big spots on the map, but he's been down there before. And for him, it's all about the journey. The destination is just part of it, but the main thing is being on the roadway, being on I-5, being in a car, being able to drive, the whole thing. So what you and I may consider miserable, he would consider greatness. And he's got all these places that he likes to stop at, and he's made friends or connections with people at some of these different restaurants or, stops along the way. So I said, okay, we can plan the trip, but I said, I need you to send me a list of exactly what it is that you want to do and where you want to stop so I know what those things are to make sure we don't miss them. On the way back from California, when we went down there and there was that snowstorm that was coming over the pass, we had to get up and over the pass before it got worse. I don't know how we made it over. It was a minor miracle. But because of the snow, we didn't have time to stop at one of the places where he wanted to stop and get lunch, and he went ballistic. an autistic individual has something in their mind and those plans are changed without proper warning, they freak out on you. And he freaked out on me. No joke. Like, he was like, I'm going to jump out of the car. Like, he was mad at me. And like I mentioned before about Isaac, the best part about him is that he doesn't sugarcoat anything. So if he's mad, he'll tell you. And he'll let you know exactly why he's mad at you. You know, because you know how life is with people. We never really share exactly what's on our mind for the most part. Like, you could be getting a cup of coffee, or you might be at the grocery store. Maybe someone asks you, like, oh, how's your day going? If you're having a miserable day for a variety of reasons, we normally don't just drop that on somebody. We're like, oh, it's going well. And you're totally lying because you're having the worst day ever, but you don't want to unload that on somebody because that would seem unreasonable. But Isaac doesn't do that. He lets you know exactly what's up. So he sent me the list, and it just says here, the text, places I would like to stop on the way to Auburn, Colfax. Flying J and Donald to say hello to Desiree. That's a friend that he made. Dutch Brothers in Sutherland. Seven Feathers if I'm not too overstimulated. Black Bear Diner in Wairika for lunch, and Chevron across the street to get gas. Starbucks in Corning, California for coffee and to say hello to my favorite barista. He wants to go to the Home Depot in Woodland. What in the world does he want at Home Depot? And he's got a church, Sacramento First Church, that he wants to visit on September 5th. And then he sent me a follow-up text a couple of days ago. Don't forget to reserve a room at the Red Lion in Auburn, California. So there you go. I mean, and one thing I can say about Isaac, like, his road trips, not the most expensive. He's not looking for luxurious hotel accommodations. The Motel 6, this case, the Red Lion. Like, he's not looking for, 5-star hotels. He's got these spots that he likes, and he wants to hit it. So who am I to get in the way of that? Now, I would say when we went to Great Wolf Lodge, that was, well, if you've ever been to Great Wolf Lodge, it's kind of like Disneyland. It's like the water version where you walk in and you basically just hand over your wallet, because that's how that's going to go down for you. But that's it. We get the list, and I know that if I check off everything on that list and we make it down and back safely, he's going to be happy as a clam. Isn't that nice? And where'd that saying come from anyways, happy as a clam? What does that even mean? I think I heard someone, I may have gotten the definition on that the other day, but I can't remember what it is. Telephone number 503-248-0620. I mentioned the story earlier in the show, so if you're just joining me, this is how eventful my weekend was. So on Friday, I took my daughter to the DMV over in Vancouver. She had completed traffic safety. She was done being grounded. It was time to get her license. So we hit the one in Orchards, but they didn't have any walk-in appointments available. I had checked the night before. I was going to schedule an appointment, but the next available appointment was at the beginning of October. Not very convenient. So I thought, well, we'll just go in and do a walk-in deal. We'll wait a while, but we'll be able to get it done. But the lady shut us down at Orchards. She's like, yeah, we don't have any walk-ins. What? And she's like, here, you can take this, the QR code, scan this tomorrow morning at 8:25. It's first come, first served. There'll be a few appointments for walk-ins that you can grab. So I scheduled a backup appointment for the following week, took the QR code, but then I thought, well, let's go swing by the one in East County. Maybe they'll get us in. Much to our surprise, they did. And she got her license. And once we got home, she took off on that bon voyage, that first trip. And that's an experience as a dad, is watching your teenage daughter drive off by herself for the first time. I'm like, here we go. And then she went on another trip later that day. On Saturday, multiple trips using multiple different vehicles, looking for any reason possible to go on a drive. And then yesterday, I was out hosting an event down at Spirit Mountain Casino, and she was with Grandma and Grandpa, so she convinced them to take off with their car. And she went over across town to go visit her boyfriend, Caleb. And the main rule was you got to be home before dark. And so I called her after I got home, and I was like, hey, have you left yet? And she goes, I'm getting ready to leave right now. And that was like at 8:51 p.m. Got a call back 4 minutes later, and I'm like, well, this ain't good. And she was hysterical, crying and just apologizing. I'm like, oh, no. And what had happened is, as she was pulling away from Caleb's place, there was a squirrel that ran out in the road. She swerved. I think she had flip-flops on, went to hit the brake, hit the accelerator, and then rammed into a car that was parked on the street. Fortunately, she's okay. No one was in the car when she hit it, but there's damage to that car and to Grandma and Grandpa's car that she was driving. My dad hit me up. He went and got the estimate today, $4,800 and change. You know, body work. Not the cheapest thing in the world. And I'm sure the other cars are going to ring up a nice bill too. So anywho, that's the deal. Less than 2 days with the license and already an accident. But she was hysterical. So I was just trying to remain calm. And I'm like, because remember, I've talked to you about this. I want her to know that she can come to me in a time of need and that I'm not going to overreact or go crazy. So I was just trying to console her and calm her. And then after she calmed down, I said, honey, you got to drive the car back to Grandma and Grandpa's. And she was like, you want me to drive? And then she started crying again. So that another 2 minutes of tears. And I said, honey, this is part of learning how to drive. You've got to respond to the situation. You're going to be okay. You're not hurt. That's a good thing. And it's not ideal, but it's just stuff. It can be fixed. It's going to be okay. And so she drove home and she was afraid. So I followed her to make sure she got there okay. And she didn't want to go inside because she was afraid that Grandma and Grandpa were going to be mad at her. And so she went in and she talked to Grandma, but Grandpa was in the bedroom and she didn't want to go talk to him because she was afraid. My dad is awesome, but he's also very quiet and doesn't say a lot. And, you know, my dad obviously not happy that his car got jacked up a little bit. But I finally told her, I said, honey, you gotta go in and talk to Grandpa. Just go say you're sorry. I said, he's going to be understanding. He loves you. And so I heard her. I didn't go in with her. I heard her go in and immediately broke down. And Grandpa did a good job of, you know, showing that he cared about her and that he still loved her and stuff. So that was an experience. But anyways, the bottom line is that if you are in my boat, you have a teenager that just started driving, I totally understand. It's awful. And it's expensive. And the problem is she's got to continue to drive. That's the worst part. She's got to continue to do it. You got to jump back on the saddle. But maybe it'll be a good experience for her because she'll understand that, you know, when Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, and Dad are like, you do this, do that, you got to pay attention to that. She'll understand that we're not just being buffoons, that we kind of know what we're talking about, but also you're able to go through a little incident like this. It can grab your attention so you focus more and you're able to learn a valuable lesson without getting hurt. Other than that, it was a fabulous weekend. All right, 503-248-0620. Dave Bartu from MatrixEdgeAI.com talking football when we come back here on the Rip City Drive. All right, I can't believe that the work this guy's continuing to put into the football season and his brand new site. You've got to check it out. Go to matrixedgeai.com. You can become a founding member for just $5 a month or $50 annually and have access to the best fantasy and gambling information. And he's just completed his week 1 matchups in the NFL. Joining us once again is the wonderful Dave Bartu. And Dave, props to you, man. You did some major work this weekend. I love it.
No, the numbers are just flying. It is literally the team's been working this week solely on quarterback props, quarterback prop betting, and as you can imagine, not an easy thing to go through, and it's highly volatile because you got attempts, you got passing TDs, you got interceptions, and you got passing yards, and so. In the last 3 years, you got 1,555, round numbers, 1,555 games, 1,532 regular season games to go through. And so we have come to one conclusion right off the bat. Don't bet attempts. Don't bet attempts because it is the least volatile, right? It doesn't matter how good or bad the defense is. You know, Sam Darnold, Bo Nix, you name it, Justin Herbert, those guys are getting their throws. You know, now what may change is how good or bad the defense is, how many interceptions, how many touchdowns, how many yards per attempt, and so forth. But on the attempts, we've basically not only we ruled it out. Look, if you bet every viable under in our model for the last 3 years, your ROI is 3.9%. You're hitting 54.4, and as you and I both know, that's above the magic number for minus 110 betting. That's profitable, right? But at 54.4%, when we have other stuff on the board, I'm looking at this right now, passing TDs, all that are selected, 58.2%, passing yards, 58.7%. Passing TDs with a projection gap, 66.2%. Think about that, man. 3 years, 260 bets, and all you had to do is follow the model Matrix Edge AI came up with, and when it's over or under the opening line by 0.5 to 0.9 touchdowns, you go 62%. You win 172 out of 260 bets. Just like, dude, that's a career for some people betting. That's a 26.3% ROI, Chad.
Man, 62%. There are people who would line up and kill for that type of percentage in Las Vegas all day.
And part of me is we've already talked about it. So the most critical one that we have found, and anybody who subscribes to MatrixEdgeAI.com, as the lines come out for week 1 prop bets. And those usually come out later. You know, we got spreads, we got totals, but the prop bets usually come a little bit later, and you can use the props for fantasy as well. But the number one that we found in quarterbacks is when the model says it is very high probability this guy goes over his yards, and that is 61 and 30. 67%. 61 and 30 in the last 3 years, and you and I both know if it actually consistently hits like that, they're going to have to change their model, right? And
Yes.
so we have to be prepared for whenever you change a model, it affects it somewhere else, it creates a hole somewhere else. You can't cover all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so we know that as that starts to fade, if 67 turns into 64 next year, which turns into 61 and 59, that means somewhere else, probably on the underside, is going up. So when it's going down, we got to be modeling to catch it up. How about we start with a week 1 nugget, though?
Yes.
A betting nugget, right?
Yes.
Blind bet. And look, this is a blind bet. This guy falls into a 71% winning bucket year over year for 3 years in week 1. Checks all the boxes. Okay, so I'm betting it. You should bet it. But here's one of them. Drake May, week 1. I don't care what the number is. FanDuel, DraftKings, you name it. Hit the under. That's the first prediction on this show that we're hitting. That is going to be the first prop bet of the year for me. Drake May, give me any number, above 1, Bob Barker, but greater than 1, and I'll take the under.
I love it. It's Dave Bartu, MatrixEdgeAI.com here on the Rip City Drive. How does that work then with the AI where you have a quarterback and you know his numbers and his averages, and then you've got the opposing defense, which changes week to week. So how does the AI work with that? Because you've got two forces going head-to-head, the quarterback and then, of course, the defense that he's facing, and all defenses are different.
They are different, and their strengths are different. And so now AI, the one thing folks have to understand about AI when you're using it, you have to give it the ideas. You have to give it the data. You can't go figure this out. It can't do it. It cannot do it. It cannot reason. It has to be told what to do. So you have to have access to the data, and you have to have the creativity to tell it what to do. So you know me, I've been big on offense and defensive coordinator grading for a long time, and I feel that betting should be not just on what the offense is going to do, but what the defense is going to do. So when I instructed it to back test over the last few years, it's also taking into account home and road, and was it an underdog, and was it a favorite? And what was the expectation of the game? Because that gives you an insight on how good the offense and defense is.
Yes.
Right? And then you start looking at the rush game and the pass game. There's some defensive coordinators that are awesome against the pass, and the other team, you're betting over on rush attempts. And so, yes, that comes into play, and all of these factors are part of it. The one cool thing about the numbers with the NFL, you know how they always say, anybody can win in a year?
Yes.
It's totally true. By week 6, everything that a team has done the previous year, everything the DC and offensive coordinator have done in their careers is gone.
Wow.
The system knows exactly who these teams are by week 6, right? Week 6, nothing else is left, and it's just that defense and that offense versus the rest of its schedule. And so week over week, it will process all that information. So when we're looking at, if we're looking at Denver, for example, or Seattle, I always go to Denver because I know how you love the Broncos, bud.
I do.
Right. And but let's be fair, there's probably a few more Seahawk fans watching right now than
Yes.
Bronco fans.
Yes.
I don't know, probably some Bo Nick fans. But look at week 1. Okay, you got Seahawks at home versus the New England Patriots. Now, we don't know exactly how that defense and offense is going to stack up, but we do know over the last 3 years, really the first 4 weeks, a lot of it is dependent on what's happened before.
Yeah.
So the best bet on the board for Seattle and New England right now, based on what these teams have done over the last 3 years, is bet the Seattle running back under his rushing yards. In the last 3 years, Seattle has only been over on rushing yards at home 45% of the time. The Patriots defense in the last 3 years has allowed an over only 41% of the time on the road, and last year it was only 17%. So that right now, without even any numbers, because I think Seahawks will be favored at home by a little bit, and they probably are right now, the number to bet in terms of props is going to be Seattle and their running back under the rush yards, and on the flip side, pass yards over. Seattle at home, 62% over. Patriot defense, here's your run-pass differential, right? Patriot defense in the last 3 years gives up an over on passing yards 56% of the time. Last year, it was 75% of its time. 6 out of 8 road games last year for the Patriot defense, 6 of them, they gave up over the passing yards on the board for the game.
That is terrific. Dave Bartu is with us, MatrixEdgeAI.com. You can go there now and become a founding member for just $5 a month. Now, it's interesting. You mentioned that 6 weeks in, Matrix Edge AI will know what these teams are all about. So I'm assuming with the Seahawks, and what you mean by that is I know last year Mike McDonald was your number 2 defensive play caller in the NFL based on the rankings from last year. But 6 weeks into this year, it will adjust and know exactly what Mike McDonald is, for example, as a defensive player caller this year.
Right. It will. It won't take into account the career. Now, it doesn't mean he's still not going to be a top 10 DC.
Yeah.
Right. But in terms of trying to figure out who the defense is
Yes.
and what the expectation is, by week 6, it's like, okay, this is set. Now, obviously, you could have cataclysmic injury, right? Your starting quarterback goes down, a key defensive player, who knows what it is. But when we're talking all 32 teams, they get into a rhythm, they get into the habits, and how good or bad they're going to be usually is going to be formed on average by week 6.
That's awesome. Dave Bartu is with us. All right, I wanted to ask you, too, what else? So we know what you like in the Seahawks-Patriots game, and, of course, the Drake May is your number one prop going into week 1. What else is jumping out at you in week 1?
Oh, now, Drake May is my first prop.
Your first prop.
Or if you have me on enough, or if you become a member, there's going to be dozens of props in week 1 that the model says. So that just happens to be one little nugget. In
so your first nugget is Drake May under,
yeah,
but you're going to have other nuggets.
Oh yeah, like Justin Herbert under his yards as well. So it's not ranked in terms of what I like the most. It's what the model says bet, don't bet, based on the historical numbers.
Yeah, so I like that because the numbers, the numbers based on what the model comes back with is what's dictating where you're going to go, right? Based on, what gives you the best percentage chance to get a win.
Exactly. Or on the fantasy side, what we've had Matrix AI develop is tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Who to start? Well, Tier 3, if a guy is in Tier 1 as a quarterback, it doesn't mean he's going to have the most yards that week. But what it says is he is 450% more likely to have a 300-yard game than the guy in the bottom tier.
Okay.
So part of this is in terms of betting and risk, right? It's all risk. We're also trying to eliminate guys, like on the fantasy side, that we don't want to start. We don't want to pursue these guys because the numbers say, whether it's on the road, whether it's the offensive coordinator, whether it's the defense being faced, a combination of all those things. They're the underdog. What did they do the last 4 weeks? These guys just might be passes. So I don't like to rank picks so much as I like to put them in tiers where we want to bet, pass, and lean on these things.
Yeah, so basically what MatrixEdgeAI.com is doing is it's helping you mitigate some of the risk that's involved when you're making your decisions.
Exactly, and give you some of your due diligence. Now, I just talked about Seahawks versus Patriots in week 1. Now, right now, if you remember, and I sent these to you, there's 32 schedule reports out there for every single team, and it breaks down every one of their games, home and road, and their historical betting trends over 2025 plus the last 3 years side by side. So if you're trying to prepare yourself for games as they're coming up, I mean, it's an incredible resource, 32 teams, 17 games per PDF report, and it breaks everything down by overs, unders, and covers.
Yeah, it's terrific. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the Seahawks season layout that you put together. And what I like the way you have it broken down is that you have it if the Seahawks are favored, if the Seahawks are underdogs, and you've got that for each and every game. And then you run through all of the data with the total, the spread, receiving yards, rush yards, receptions, rushing attempts, pass yards, and passing attempts. So you've got everything laid out for every single game based on who's going to be the favorite, who's going to be the underdog. It's unbelievable.
Right, because we don't know who's going to be the favorite and the underdog in week 5, week 6. Now, like week 1, okay, I just pulled up the Broncos, right? We got Broncos at Kansas City. By the way, one of the things I'm working on for Matrix Edge AI and the data is it's working on player continuity. And especially in that first month, getting off to a good start, returning starters and player continuity in certain positions is really important. Kansas City Chiefs were one of 5 teams that Matrix Edge said, be really cautious with this team. Every single year for the last 3 years, they have less and less and less continuity. Whereas the Denver Broncos, continuity in 2023 was 28th in the league. Last year, it was 15th. This year, it's 5th. So the Broncos are trending up. Kansas City continuity is decaying. Now, are the Broncos the underdog right now at Kansas City?
They are, yes.
They are. Okay, so this is for the Broncos offense then, this is a straight bet under, okay? In 2025, when they were underdog on the road, they never hit an over on the total. The game didn't hit a single over. The Chiefs didn't allow an over at home as a favorite. And in the last 3 years, the Chiefs have only allowed 22% overs. Broncos offense has only been over 41% of the time. So right off the bat, huge unders on the total, which pushes down into receiving yards, rush yards, and receptions, which all lean under in the prop bets.
Gosh, that's amazing. Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix, or MatrixEdgeAI.com here on the show as we're breaking it down. I've got a big Bears fan that's listening right now. Their first game of the year is going to be against the Panthers. What did you see with the Bears numbers week 1?
Okay, let's fire this baby up. This is fun because a lot of these I've never looked at. They just came out this morning, and when Matrix Edge they just loaded into a file and goes, here you go, Dave. Right? And knock yourself out. Oh, this is fascinating. So the Bears are at Carolina. I'm assuming the Bears are favored in this game. Okay?
Yes.
So the Bears on the road as a favorite, they hit their total. They were over every single time last year and have been over every single time in the last 3 years.
Gosh.
The Panthers defense, though, 48% of the time in the last 3 years they give up the over. So coin flip there. But last year, 57% of the time as a home dog, they gave up the over. So the lean on this is over and Bears cover because the Bears as a favorite on the road cover excellent. The Panthers defense, covers 71% of the time. So if I'm betting one of those two, I'm betting the total over on that one. The numbers also do lean towards Bears winning and covering. Offensive props, the best one, stay away from pass yards. You got a good pass defense in Carolina. Now, granted, Chicago has a wonderful pass offense, but I'd stay away from the passing yards. That's a dangerous one. The best one on the board is probably rush attempts over for Chicago and pass attempts over for Chicago. Don't get into the yards on rushing, receiving, or passing.
Very interesting. Another team I wanted to ask you about because I know we got some Cowboy fans who are listening. They're taking on the Giants. They're a favorite in week number 1. What does the data tell you about the Giants and Cowboys week 1? What are you seeing there, Dave?
Okay, so right off the bat, New York Giants quarterback, we're betting the under on his yard total. Period. Okay. Now Cowboys are going to be favored on the road in this game, but I think is this a Thursday night or is this a weird late night early game?
It is. Yeah. It's a night game. Yep.
Right. Okay. So it's I haven't built into the model the night games in depth because there's so few of them. It's hard to get a good sample size. There might be patterns, but they're really not significant. So. In terms of winning and losing, in terms of covering this, slight edge to the Giants covering this. The Cowboys offense on the road as a favorite last 3 years only covered 45%. Last year, probably because of that defense Eberflus threw up, only covered 20% of their games on the road as a favorite. Okay, whereas the Giants on defense, when they were underdogs, they covered 57% of the time. So in terms of the spread, leans towards Giants a little bit. On the total, it's pretty even. Cowboys went over 55% of the time. Giants defense, 3 years gave up 38%, but last year gave up 57%. So there's a lot of really tight lines here, and I think you and I also know this is a divisional game. This is probably a really good one not to bet right now, except under pass yards on that Giant quarterback. That's probably the best overall bet that's out there, but it also says receiving yards, rushing yards, and receptions under in this situation with the Cowboys on the road and the Giant defense.
All right, I do have a question about the Broncos. I was curious about this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that their Vegas win total was set for the upcoming season at 9.5, and that's for a team like you mentioned that has the fifth most in terms of continuity, which is great. They won 14 games last year, but what do you think about that win total for the Broncos at 9.5? Because it would seem like, in my mind, that over would be a no-brainer, but what do you think?
Nothing's a no-brainer in the NFL, man. It is the difference between the NFL and college football is incredibly massive. I mean, it is how tight an NFL game is versus college is just it's night and day. You cannot compare either one. But with 9.5, you got a returning starting quarterback. I think a question mark is how much is Webb really going to take over play calling? And if he does, how much of an impact is that going to be? Defensively, they should be solid. One thing I want to look at is I've developed a new metric called momentum and game. It's a momentum game control combination. Okay, so when you hit peak momentum in the NFL, you win 91% of all the football games. And so what I want to model out is what does Sean Payton do typically on the road and at home for momentum, and that will really help dictate what I expect out of the season. So I'm going to put a pin in that. I'm going to do some homework on win totals using momentum and game control. But given all the other factors that we're looking at, you got new coaching at Las Vegas. You have a team in regression, although still dangerous with a healthy Mahomes, but that's a big question mark in Kansas City, and certainly with the Chargers. You have a really, really good offensive defensive coordinator combination there. But I do agree with you. I'd lean 10-6 more than I would lean 9-7. But I hate that half win, that half loss. I'd try to bet that thing. I'll pay the extra juice to go over 9 because then 8-8 beats me. And 8-8 as a Bronco fan, you can't even stomach saying it right now.
Oh gosh, the thought of going 8-8 makes me sick. Or just 9-8, 8-8, anywhere in that area. I don't need that after a 14-win season. Boy, I tell you what, Dave, you got to keep up the great work. I'm so excited because you're just getting started with MatrixEdgeAI.com. There's so many more good things to come down the pipe.
Oh, just so many picks. With the subscription membership, the founding membership is growing every single day. And just for everybody out there, the reason we call it founding membership is it's not always going to stay at $5 a month. When
That's
the
right.
NFL expands, when we get into college football, when we get into the NBA, every time we expand the sport, boom, it's better data, price goes up. So it's a way to get in early on this AI. Because the amount of work we can do now is just absolutely incredible. I look forward to being on. You can have me on anytime. We can do picks. Anybody listening, you got a team we want to profile, a game you want to profile in week 1, hit up Chad, and we will talk about it this week and next week going into week 1 of the NFL season.
All right, go to MatrixEdgeAI.com right now. Check it out. You can become a founding member and get locked into $5 a month and have access to Dave's mind, which is terrific. Dave, you're the man, dude. We'll catch up soon, and I appreciate it, man. That was great.
Take it easy, brother.
You got it. There's Dave Bartoo. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. That is a good thing. All right. Big thanks to Day Bar 2. Make sure you check out matrixedgeai.com. And we'll continue to talk to Dave up to and throughout the course of the football season, which is awesome. Love football season. It's my favorite time of the year, as it is for many of you. And we're not far away. We're getting close. Tomorrow, we will catch up with Daniel Christerian and get the latest on his recovery and Johnny's recovery from the kidney donation. And then reminder that the mayor is going to join the show at 4:15, and then Council Chair Jamie Dunphy in studio at 4:30. So we're dialed in. We're going to be all over it tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be nice to get some details before the big vote, which is coming up on Wednesday. But right now, it looks like everyone's on, page to where we're going to get that yes vote and then be able to move forward, which is going to be great. So I'm looking forward to that. Telephone number 503-248-0620. You can always reach out to me on social media at Chad and Rip City. Always happy to engage and have conversation, which I enjoy. And still loving the summertime. I just can't believe we're already August 10th. I mean, it's just flying by. It always does. And it makes me sad because I love longer days. I love warm temperatures. And I love this time of year. So I'm looking forward to it. After I'm done here tonight, got a little lesson with my coach Nick over in Beaverton, which should be nice. Going to hit Great Blue tomorrow morning. And we'll be back at it tomorrow at 3. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter, my man, for engineering the program. You guys have a great night. I appreciate you. And I will talk to you tomorrow at 3 right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Thanks, Brendan.
All right, Chad, you're clear, my brother?
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Have fun tomorrow with the mayor. It sounds like you guys are going to have yourself a dandy of a show tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and then have a good trip. Yeah, I'll talk to you when you get back, but enjoy some much-needed downtime, man. We'll hold it down for you.
No, I appreciate you, buddy. I really do. Keep up the good work, and congratulations on this merger, bro.